Welcome aboard the Walt Disney World Transportation System, also known as the Monorail sometimes. Today, we are riding through one of the coolest Disney parks in the entire world, Epcot, formerly known as Epcot Center, still known as Epcot Center if you can't let go of the past. If you look out the windows to your left-hand side, you may catch a glimpse of Guardians of the Galaxy, Mission Breakout, Cosmic Rewind, and on your right-hand side, a giant construction zone that's been there for years. We don't quite know when the construction zone appeared in the middle of Epcot, but we believe it predates early European settlers of the area due to ancient writings found in an old cave that's located roughly where Club Cool is today. Various whispers and murmurings are heard late at night in Club Cool after the guests have gone home for the day. The language of these whispers, though, aligns with no known language that exists on the Earth today, and any expert who dares to try and translate the whispers is driven mad within the day. As we approach the station, please be sure to watch your head and step and gather all your loose items as you disembark. Thank you for taking this journey with us aboard the Monorail here at Walt Disney World.
I once heard a monorail captain say that over the speaker as I was riding the monorail through Epcot. I don't know what came over him, but I did hear some weird whisperings. Who doesn't love a monorail ride at Walt Disney World or at Disneyland? The monorail serves as a great form of transportation at Walt Disney World and an amazing way to get to the Disneyland Hotel and Downtown Disney at Disneyland. But they're still pretty cool. I've been going to the Disney parks for more than 20 years. I've been on my fair share of monorail rides, but all monorails are not made equally, okay? The Mark I is different from the Mark V. The Mark V is different from the Mark VII, and the Mark VII is different from this chocolate monorail. It's made out of chocolate. It doesn't even take you anywhere. And today I figured I'd make a very distinct list, the perfect list, the best tier list of monorails at the Disney park, Disneyland and Walt Disney World. Which are the best and which are the worst, graded on a scale from S being the highest and F being the lowest. This is what's known as a tier list. You want to be up here with the S ranks, okay? The S ranks are where the big boys are, the coolest monorails are up at the S. You do not, however, want to be down here at the F tier. The F tier are where the stinky monorails are, the monorails that just look out of place, the monorails that don't have any exciting features or that just don't look good to my eye. That's where they live. They live down in the poopy tier, F. And you know, rating these monorails is very subjective, right? Some people's most favorite monorail is going to be my least favorite monorail, but that's okay. This video is factual. This is the video you need to refer back to when you're having an argument with your friends over which monorail is the best. And what better monorail to start with than the original, the workhorse, the one and only Mark IV monorail. That's right, the original to Walt Disney World. The original at Disneyland, obviously, was the Mark I. But the Mark IV, man, look at these. They're all white with the colored trim, very emblematic of what Walt Disney World was supposed to be when it opened in 1971. Yes, the Mark IV monorail was what was bringing guests from the Transportation and Ticket Center to the Magic Kingdom on the opening day of the Magic Kingdom, and they were going for a completely different vibe from what you would find over in Anaheim at Disneyland. These were transportation systems of the future. This wasn't an attraction, this is how you got around the resort, which was basically the Magic Kingdom resort area, and that's it back in those days. Unlike the Mark VIs that we currently have at Walt Disney World, I'll grade them later, the Mark IV trains were shorter, the cabins were narrower, and there was no standing capacity, but they were air conditioned, so it does have that over the most modern Disneyland monorail. But unlike the current Walt Disney World monorail windows, you could open the windows of the Mark IV. So if you ever just were feeling a little too hot in there, you needed some breeze, I guess you could just open the window. And although all the doors did open automatically, like the monorails we have today, a cast member would have to walk by the length of the train and close all of them manually. So that's a bit of a downer. So the Mark IV, it's very recognizable as the Walt Disney World monorail. It was the first monorail to make that huge lap around the Seven Seas Lagoon and stop at all of the different resorts, and it had air conditioning, which immediately, like I said, makes it better than Disneyland's monorail. But unfortunately, it was smaller than what we have today, and you had to close those doors by yourself, and apparently the pilots' cabins were not heated or cooled at all. So if you're a cast member driving the monorail, take a fan with you or something, because you will be sweating or you will be shivering if it's the winter months. So the Mark IV goes squarely, I'm gonna say, into the B tier. It's not amazing, but it's certainly not like average or lower than average. The Mark IV monorail gets the job done, and it does it well. It's not anything special, but it's a cool monorail to look at and a fun monorail to ride, hence the B tier. All right, what's next? Of course, the Mark II monorail. Allegedly, the rumors say, better than the Mark I monorail.
but not quite as good as the Mark III if you were to believe the numbers and the way numbers work. It had that really cool bubble on top of it that let people stand up and look through the bubble on top of it. What improvements did it have over the Mark I when it was introduced in 1961, you ask me?
Well, I guess you could say it took people to the Disneyland Hotel, and then back to Tomorrowland, and then back to the Disneyland Hotel, so they had to make it bigger to compensate for the bigger guest load. It was no longer just a sightseeing attraction. The monorail had become a transportation system, and it had the bubble on top. And that's about it. So the Mark II, it's not too different from the Mark I. You had the bubble, you had the Disneyland Hotel stop, and it was a bit bigger. It's not a huge improvement, not a massive upgrade, but it is still a monorail, and it started taking people places rather than just being a sightseeing attraction, so I'm gonna put it in the C tier. It's not bad, it's not good, it's just a better Mark I. And if that's sort of giving you spoilers for where I'm going to rank the Mark I, the first is usually not the greatest incarnation of the monorail. So let's go ahead and actually talk right now about the Mark I monorail, because this one is actually really interesting, and I don't want to try to rate it high based on the history of it. I want to rate it based on how it performs as a monorail compared to all the other monorails. Mark I. Now, first of all, I think the Disneyland Mark I monorail may be the best looking of any of the monorails. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, doesn't matter. I think the Mark I is a dang good looking monorail. It's really small, really short, so obviously it can't carry as many people as the Mark II or Mark III for that matter. But that didn't really matter at the time. This was essentially just Tomorrowland's Casey Jr. It wasn't meant to take anyone any places. It was just meant to go from Tomorrowland to, Tomorrowland. So at the time of opening, this would have been A tier, this would have been S tier even, but we are comparing it to all the other monorails. This is, I would say, maybe objectively the worst monorail. There's one other on this list that is pretty bad, but this one, the only thing that's sort of saving the Mark I for me is the design, because it just looks so dang good. And a lot of the reason, in fact, the entire reason the Mark I looked so good is because it was designed by the legendary two-time Best Human Award winner, Bob Gurr. Listen, the Mark I has a lot going for it, okay? I haven't talked enough about how beautiful this dang train looks, and it was a great way to see Tomorrowland. It was the first sort of widely accessible monorail in America. However, compared to the monorails that we got after, is very low tech. It was the first incarnation, and you could tell. But, you know, it made history. So I gotta pay respect to the Mark I, while also admitting that it's not as good as the future monorails would be. I'm going to put the Mark I monorail in the C tier. It's not terrible, it's not the best, but it's solid, it gets the job done, and the only thing that's like keeping it from D tier is just how dang good this looks. This is probably my favorite monorail. This definitely actually is my favorite monorail. The Mark I is beautiful. I'm sorry, Mark I. You just don't have a high enough capacity. You know, this green screen thing has been fun, but I feel like we need a break. You know, in today's society, we're always all so caught up with what can we display on our green screens? How can we make videos more immersive and put graphics up there while also showing our face with these green screens? And I think we need to move toward a more analog way to do videos, right? Let's head to the desk. The desk is the ways of old. Ah, yes, the time-honored tradition of sitting at a desk, just like our forefathers and our five mothers used to do. And you know, sitting at this desk and really appreciating the past has me thinking, maybe all monorails don't have to be super high-tech. Maybe some monorails can be low-tech. Maybe they can be smaller. Maybe they don't have to be built for capacity. Maybe some monorails can be edible. Let's start raking the chocolate monorail now. This monorail is made out of chocolate. Oh, chocolate monorail, how do I love thee? Let me count the ways. See, the chocolate monorail stands in a class all its own. All the other monorails serve as a way of transportation, or even an attraction, a way to get from point A to point B, or in the case of the Mark I, from point A back to point A. Now, while all of that is pretty cool, riding a monorail around a theme park, the chocolate monorail, however, unlike all of the other monorails, is able to be eaten. I mean, I'm sure if you wanted to and you tried hard enough, you could eat some of the other monorails, but I don't think it's recommended. Now, how does one unlock the mythical chocolate monorail perk? Well, for one, you have to be staying at Disney's contemporary resort at Walt Disney World. And for a lot of people, including myself, that's the hardest part, is just getting to the contemporary. Part 2 is ordering it off of their room service menu. This plate right here that you see with the chocolate monorail and all of those, I guess, what are they called? They're like chocolate dumplings. Truffles. It's a chocolate truffle. What, chocolate dumpling? Does that even exist? This plate with the chocolate monorail and all of these truffles is going to set you back $45. If you ask me if that's worth it, no, it's not worth it. That's why I didn't order it when I stayed at the Contemporary. But you can order it for $45, and I'm assuming the white chocolate monorail tastes very similar to white chocolate. I don't know about the flavor of the other truffles though. However, if you would like a smaller version, a more economical version of the white chocolate monorail, you can get a $5.79 monorail s'mores brownie from the Contempo Cafe. I feel like this is probably the way to go. So, the $45 white chocolate monorail with chocolate truffles, that is going to go into the D tier. Yes, you can eat it, and yes, it probably tastes pretty good, but for $45, you could spend on something completely different, maybe a souvenir, maybe an entire lunch meal at the Contempo Cafe. It's not worth the money. However, the s'mores brownie monorail, that's gonna go up to the B tier, because not only is it s'mores flavored, you still get the white chocolate monorail, and you're only paying $6 for it. It's a win, win, win. White chocolate monorail on the s'mores brownie is by far the leader here. And with that, I suppose the desk has fulfilled its purpose. It's time for me to abandon my roots and return to the green screen. Shall you all come with me? That wasn't a question I have for the camera. Yes, the Mark V monorail, also known as that one time the Disney World monorails were at Disneyland. Now, they're really trying to replicate the look of the Mark IV monorails, the original monorails from Walt Disney World, but I just don't think it really vibes with Disneyland's Tomorrowland atmosphere. Can you imagine walking around Tomorrowland in the 90s and just having a random Walt Disney World monorail zoom past you? I know for people who were there at the time, these are the Disneyland monorails, but for me, these are the Disney World monorails. They don't belong here. Just something about this. Looking at this photo, it feels wrong somehow. Deep in my core, it feels like this is like an AI generated image, or something is terribly, terribly wrong. What is this doing here? Were they an upgrade from the Mark III? Yeah, actually they're a very big upgrade, but it doesn't gel with the rest of Disneyland around it. Now, even though the Mark III wasn't as technologically advanced as the Mark V looks way, way worse than the Mark III, so I'm going to put it below the Mark III. In the D tier with the chocolate monorail. You belong with the $45 chocolate monorail. Toy monorail. Toy monorail. Oh, the toy monorail. Okay, I got a bone I need to pick with the toy monorail. Not only does this monorail, one, not take you anywhere, not to a hotel, not to Tomorrowland, it just kind of sits there until you move it with your hand. Two, how am I supposed to fit inside of the toy monorail? It's too small. You thought that the Mark I monorail was too small to carry guests anywhere? Try fitting more than 3 people into this thing. I dare you. It's probably gonna be very difficult, nay, impossible. Also, this is a different monorail playset, not the one I showed earlier, but you notice something a little weird here? Yeah, that's the Mark VII monorail, the monorail that currently runs at Disneyland. And that's Spaceship Earth in the background. Who did this? Who did this? Toy monorail, you are humiliating. I never want to be seen near you. Toy monorail, you go in the F tier, the bottom of the barrel. It does not get worse than the toy monorail. Forget getting people in there, the doors don't even open. It's a mistake. It's a mistake. I hate this thing. Moving on.
I got it.
What can I say about the Mark VI that hasn't been said before? The Mark VI monorail is a bit confusing because while it is the most recent Disney World monorail, it is not the most recent monorail. The Mark VII at Disneyland beats it. However, it is the most technologically advanced monorail, more advanced, I should say, than Disneyland's. Now, I'm showing footage of the Mark 6 because it just so happens that I have a successful YouTube channel at the same time that the Mark 6 monorail is in use at Walt Disney World. Now, what makes the Mark 6 more advanced than the Mark 7, even though 7 is a higher number than 6? Two words, my friend: air conditioning. The Walt Disney World monorails are heated and cooled, which allows them to operate year-round, whereas Disneyland's is just cooled from the air around it, or heated from the air around it, which makes it so on hot days it cannot operate, or on really cold days it's just really cold inside the monorail. And it's a newer addition, but I think an underappreciated one. The Mark 6s have an underglow that matches the color of the monorail. They're just so cool. If you can't tell, I'm a bit of a Mark 6 fan. I'm a bit of a Mark 6 enjoyer. The monorail goes all the way around the Seven Seas Lagoon, visiting all of the Magic Kingdom resorts. It also goes to Epcot and then back to the Ticket and Transportation Center, so you can get to 2 parks and a bunch of hotels just using the monorail. You don't have to get on a bus, you don't have to get on the Skyliner. Even though I love the Skyliner, you don't have to get on it. It's just the monorail. The monorail at Disney World, I think, is the best incarnation of the monorail that we've had up until this point, which is why I am putting the Mark 6 monorail, my friends, of course, where else but into the S tier. Yes, it has its problems. The doors sometimes fall off and become a hazard to guests, but overall, this is the premier monorail in America. This is the best monorail at any of the Disney parks, in my opinion. Spoilers for the Mark 7. The Mark 7's good too, but not as good as the 6. Simpsons monorail. What? Well, this is a video about Disney monorails. Disney owns The Simpsons now. There's an episode about the monorail. It's a very famous episode. And, you know, with it being The Simpsons and all, I think it's got to go in the S tier. S for Simpsons. It makes sense. It does a lot of good for the Springfield community for reasons that I can't quite recall at the moment, but it brings a lot of good to the town, okay? Just take my word for it. Onward now, my friends, to the Mark III monorail. Right, so get this. Back when they were built, the monorails were considered an e-ticket attraction. I know. And because they were so popular and they only had 4 cars in the Mark II, they decided they needed to up the capacity because everybody wanted to ride the monorail back in the day. So the Mark IIIs were essentially a small step ahead of the Mark IIs with increased capacity and, I believe, electric motors. So that made them a lot quieter and a lot more powerful, a lot smoother of a ride to the Disneyland Hotel. If you were going to the Disneyland Hotel, some people would just stay on and ride it back to Tomorrowland because you were riding a freaking monorail and that was awesome. Hence why it was considered an e-ticket. So I guess it just makes sense if the Mark II is on the C tier, you know, right middle of the road, that the Mark III would be at the B tier. It's objectively better, even though they are very, very similar monorails. The design is amazing, the capacity has been increased, and the electric motor makes it quieter. But the design is so good, it's got the bubble top still, and there's more trains, more cars. I think that the Mark III belongs up here in the A tier. The Mark III is pretty dang cool. In fact, I would say that I prefer this design to the Mark 7 that we have today, and let's just go ahead and get the Mark 7 out of the way right now. What do I love about it? What do I hate about it?
To those of you who have just joined us, welcome aboard the Disneyland Monorail. For your safety, please remain seated, keeping your hands, arms, feet, and legs inside the cabin. Watch your children, and no smoking, please. To the left of the monorail is the main entrance of Disneyland, the happiest place on Earth. Disneyland is truly an American original. Since its opening in 1955, it has hosted hundreds of millions of guests from around the world, including presidents, kings, and celebrities. It is the original Disney theme park, created and enjoyed by Walt Disney himself.
Listen, okay, I got a soft spot for the Mark 7. The Mark 7 is the current monorail in use at Disneyland today, and it's got a fun loop, it's got a fun narration, and it goes through some tight curves and turns when you're in Tomorrowland, believe me, you. The design of the Mark 7 is a lot more streamlined, a lot more modern than the sort of retro-futurist style that we had for the Mark III, and it apparently, allegedly I'm saying, uses the chassis from the Mark V. That's why the bottoms of these two monorails look so similar, it's the same chassis. Unfortunately, it does not have the air conditioning that the Disney World monorail, the Mark VIs, have, okay? But I will say I do like the exterior design of the Disneyland monorail a bit more than I like the exterior design of the Walt Disney World monorail. Because the Mark 7 is the only monorail with a stop inside of a Disney theme park, I know the Walt Disney World monorail goes through Epcot, but it doesn't have a stop in Epcot. I think that Disney knows they have to go a bit heavier with the theming of the Disneyland monorail versus the Walt Disney World monorail because it is so intertwined with the theme park there rather than just a way to get around. It's more of a ride. So yes, it does look better, but I do prefer the interiors, the workings of the Disney World monorail. So what's more important, the aesthetics or the functionality of a monorail? You know, the Disney World monorail has the better inner workings. The Disneyland one has the better exterior, but the Disney World one also has the underglow. I'm just gonna put them in the same tier. Okay, they're both S tier. They're both amazing. S tier. They're both amazing. I love the Mark 7 and I love the Mark 6. I just really wonder what the next step would be with a Mark 8. Would the Mark 8 come to Walt Disney World because those monorails are literally falling apart? Or would it come to Disneyland because the Disneyland monorail, let's be honest, could use an upgrade, could use a little bit of air conditioning. I keep coming back to that, but it's important, okay? I can't ride the monorail in the summertime. I just want to ride the monorail when it's sunny and nice outside. Is that a crime? Now this one's a bit different. See, there are monorails at the American Disney parks, Disneyland and Walt Disney World, obviously, but there are no monorails at Paris, Shanghai, Hong Kong, but Tokyo Disneyland also has its own monorail, although this one is a bit different. See, the Tokyo Disneyland monorail wasn't built or designed by Disney like the Disney World or Disneyland monorails. Instead, it was designed by a Japanese company called Hitachi Rail. However, this monorail is more similar to Walt Disney World's version rather than Disneyland's. It's less of an attraction, more of a legit transportation system. I would argue more of a legitimate transportation system than Disney World's. You board the monorail from the Maihama train station, and then you can ride it around the Disney resorts, like at the Magic Kingdom. But here you do have to pay for a ticket as opposed to the Magic Kingdoms where it's just sort of included with being on Disney property, I guess. You don't even have to be staying there. You can just get on the monorail if you feel like getting on the monorail. Here, you have to pay. Now over in Tokyo, they don't have mark numbers for their monorails, although they did recently replace the fleet in late 2023 and early 2024. So these could technically be like the Mark II Tokyo Disneyland monorails, although it's a new fleet. They don't refer to them as the Mark IIs. The Mark I Tokyo Disneyland monorails are very, very similar. You can tell because the wave pattern on the outside of the new ones is two-tone, and the outside of the old ones, it's just one-tone. So if you ever need to tell the difference between the Mark I and the Mark II Tokyo monorails, there you go. Two colors on the outside versus one color on the outside. Does that mean in the future, if they replace the Mark II monorails from Tokyo with the new Mark III Tokyo monorail, will there be three colors of waves on the outside? And it'll just keep continuing to increase as the mark number continues to increase as well. Something to think about. Now I gotta say, if we're looking at interiors of Disney monorails, this one is far and away the best. It's built like an actual commuter train, but you have, you know, the Mickey-shaped windows, the Mickey-shaped stability handles, and Disney music plays while you're riding the train. They don't do that on the monorail. I should say the American monorails. And while yes, riding the monorail through, say, the Contemporary or through Tomorrowland is a very good way to sort of get excited for getting into the park, the Tokyo Disneyland monorail just brings it to a whole different level. It surrounds you with theming. It's a great way to build anticipation before you even step through the gates. Not to mention the monorail wraps they use over there in Tokyo put the ones we use here in the States to shame. Everyone, that is, except for the Disney 100 wrap that was at Disneyland. That one is probably my favorite. I feel like this kind of just goes without saying. This is just the easiest S tier I've ever given to a monorail. The Tokyo Disneyland monorail is almost like the definitive monorail. If the exterior was a bit more Disneyland, I feel like that would get its own tier above S, but it just sort of looks like a blockier version of Disney World's, but the inside is amazing, so it's S tier. The Tokyo Disneyland monorail is an easy S tier. And there's one more monorail we have to talk about before I wrap up this video, and that monorail is actually on my body right now. It's the monorail shirt. Now, I don't know if you can tell, but I got this shirt a long time ago. It's a little small on me, so just for that, it has some cool, you know, Mark 6 monorails on it, but it's small and it's gray, and the green sort of blends in with the green screen. See? So this is going to go in the F tier. I apologize for wearing this shirt the entire video. It is monorail themed, so I had to. I'm sure you understand. F tier monorail shirt, though. So there it is, my objectively correct tier list as to which monorail is the best and which monorail shirts are the worst. And I'm sorry to say that if you disagree with me, I ran this through a team of monorail scientists, and they did confirm that this is factually correct. But what about you? Do you disagree with me? I mean, the monorail scientists? Share your thoughts on this list down below and how you would change it. Which mark would be at the S tier for you? How about the F tier? What is your least favorite monorail? I really am curious to see what the consensus is, even though I know, what's correct, down in the comments below. So whether you're on the Disneyland monorail, the Tokyo Disneyland monorail, or the Walt Disney World monorail system, just know that there is nearly 65 years of history and Disney legacy packed into that little train you're riding to or through the parks. It's become an iconic symbol of the Disney parks, and for good reason. Hopefully sometime in the future, though, I will be able to create a people mover tier list if Disney brings it back to Disneyland, and it incorporates it into every Disney park around the world, which, let's be honest, should be what happens. They'd all be S tier, though, spoiler alert. Just so you don't have to watch that video, they would all certainly be at the S tier, just to dispel any doubt there. Hello everybody, thank you so much for watching this video where I rate the monorails throughout the Disney World and the world, just the regular world. And Disneyland, you can't forget Disneyland. If you enjoyed this video and you want to see more tier lists like this, please hit the like button, and if you're new around here and you want to keep updated whenever I upload a new video, please, by all means, hit the subscribe button. A big thank you, of course, as always, to my supporters over at patreon.com/offhanddisney. They are the ones who make videos like this possible. And if you'd like to join their elite ranks, for even just $1 a month, you get early access to videos. They got to see this yesterday, if you're watching this when I uploaded it, the day I uploaded it. And we have some extra special programs coming soon. There are higher tiers if you feel so inclined. But if you would like to follow me for free on other websites, I am at Offhand Disney on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Very easily findable because it's just Offhand Disney. It's just the channel's name. Pretty simple. But with that, I believe that wraps up the end card, therefore wrapping up the video. Everything that came before it, this is the end. Thank you all so much for watching. I look forward to seeing you all in the next video. I don't think it's going to be a tier list, but you never know. It could be. Just keep an eye out. Goodbye.